good evening, and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. To start off with a super chat from James Holben, a $10 one that says, "Here, pay the IP bill." We've got a couple of what appeared to be live stream hiccups of a sort on the YouTube side this evening, but alas, we'll try to get that set up. That just was very funny. I was not expecting that at all. There is a heaping helping of news to cover this evening because there are primary elections in Virginia. Polls just closed 7 minutes ago on this Tuesday, August the 4th. We'll get into a couple of those, although it's not really as exciting. There aren't any major races. There's a Republican primary for U.S. Senate, and then you've got a Democrat primaries for Virginia's 1st and 2nd that are kind of interesting, sort of, sometimes. Then, in the meantime, you've got Michigan. That's the big one. Polls mostly closing at 8 p.m. Eastern time, but 4 Upper Peninsula counties on Central Time, Dickinson, Gogebic, Iron, and Menominee close at 9 p.m. Eastern, or 7 p.m. Eastern for the Mitten and some of the UP, and then 8 p.m. Central. 7 p.m. Central, and then 8 p.m. Central for those 4 counties. We'll cover some of that stuff here on the show because that's the big one. We have all of your favorite people. We've got Shri Thanedar and his drawn-on eyebrows. We've got Haley Stevens, otherwise known as Chris Farley meets SpongeBob the hall monitor. And then we've got Abdul El-Sayed and all of his Vote Blue Akhbar stuff. So it's going to be a good one. Then we get over into, of course, Kansas and Missouri. Polls close at 8 p.m. Eastern for Missouri, and that's one of 10 states that implemented a brand spanking new congressional redistricting map for the 2026 election. So it's very likely we're going to come to instead of a 6-2 map, Republican to Democrat, a 7-1. And there are all kinds of big primary elections because Cori Bush, one of the squad ladies, she's back due to unpopular demand. So we'll cover some of that a little bit later. In Kansas, most of those polls close at 8 p.m. Eastern. A lot of 8 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be fast and furious once that clock ticks, except for some far western mountain time counties, which close at, you guessed it, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Steve? Good. I was worried that one wasn't going to be on the board. And then we've got, last but not least, Washington State. There's really only one competitive U.S. House race. That's Washington's 3rd. We'll get into some of that. Large wildfires around Spokane have forced evacuations of about 67,000 people. That could impact some results. We will get to that. In the meantime, the big story is the Michigan Democratic primary at the Senate level, which is causing a serious amount of infighting. Up until this point, only New York, California, and then Denver have really caused this huge upswing in national election situations that involve the hyper-progressive DSA candidates. Again, now you have Maine kind of doing its thing, but Troy Jackson is strange as a quick last-minute replacement for, Graham Plattner any day of the week. So let's get into some of this Michigan situation, because Michigan, as we talked about at the very end of yesterday's show, and I'm sorry, this is a very weird way to begin the show as we normally see it here. Right now, we are seeing what may be one of the most bizarre Civil War middle map shift kind of midterm elections in U.S. history. So right now, Michigan is becoming more moderate. Used to, Michigan was a much more blue state. It was dependable. You would expect people like Hillary Clinton to just walk away with it, and then she didn't. And then you were expecting Joe Biden to just breeze right through, no problem. And he didn't quite breeze through as much as he'd hoped. And then Kamala Harris did not win in Michigan. And now we're turning around and we're watching as Michigan becomes a more purple state. Essentially, Michigan is becoming Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is becoming Georgia. Georgia is becoming Texas. It's rather strange. So let's dig into some of these Michigan details. Abdul El-Sayed and Haley Stevens. So right out the front, of course, Abdul El-Sayed is getting a ton of grief over being the guy who, again, has campaigned with Hassan Piker, the guy who said America deserved 9/11. He's very, very, very pro all of the radical Dearborn, again, Islamic stuff. And then also, at the same time, he said that he's going to apply universal health care to everyone. He has no plan of how to do this. He just says he's just going to snap his fingers and then hesto presto, you're going to have health care. And then he's moaned in the corner about AIPAC and the Jews a lot. And that's going to be a little bit rough for him. Specifically because if he comes away winning the primary tonight, which he's very, very likely to, one Haley Stevens voter said that he will vote Republican in the general, according to the Associated Press, if Abdul El-Sayed wins the Democratic nomination. David Salama, aged 48, he's an anesthesiologist from West Bloomfield. Quote, I would vote for Haley in November if she were to win today, but if Abdul wins, I will vote for Mike Rogers in November. Quote, he said, noting, in the extremes lie trouble. There are additionally individuals who are Jewish and Christian in Michigan who have said that though they would likely vote for Haley Stevens, they're not really going to come out and vote for Abdul in November. And there's a bit of a danger here because, again, Abdul El-Sayed is like 96% likely to win in that primary this evening, although it may not end up being that cut and dried. We'll get into some of that here in a bit. Now, why isn't Haley Stevens have a fighting chance? After all, she's got a much better chance against Mike Rogers, the Republican, in November. You know, she's kind of discount Elisa Slotkin. What's the issue? The issue is that right up front, whereas Abdul El-Sayed is cool and charismatic, sort of, and he looks like he's kind of looks like a mix between James Tallarico and Zoran Mamdani, and he wears t-shirts, and he's cool and hip with the kids. Well, Haley Stevens is a Simpsons caricature who has come to life. Now, again, don't get me wrong. She is very, very far on the left. She says all of the things. She can't actually get out there and insult Abdul El-Sayed in the nutcase that he is without going after Donald Trump. Here she was doing exactly that.
You know, Trump won in 24. He bamboozled a lot of people. He played to the lowest common denominator here in my state. He lied. He said he'd take on China. I keep mentioning that because he started to trade more with Canada.
Okay, so what she's saying here is not technically incorrect on the foreign policy side. You know, Trump said he would take on China. He hasn't as much. Is what I guess you could pull out of there. And that would really work because Michiganders, at least the Union Democrats, kind of the Bill Clinton era of populism, really didn't care for China. And in fact, the Bill Clinton populism movement started as kind of an argument against the opening China up so that they could fight the USSR during the Cold War. That's how the Bill Clinton populist era of Democrats actually came to being. And then it was really kicked into high gear during the Japanese auto manufacturing crisis. So that last holdout of Rust Belt voters who would come out and vote for Haley isn't really even excited about her anyway, not enough to come out and really campaign, because not only is she, again, trying to just rant about Donald Trump, she's just lame. I mean, she's just, ugh.
Okay, some of you have seen, you know, there's those cool kids on the internet. They're doing the cool kid chatter. Some of them might be the coastal elites, making fun of how I talk. Not okay.
One mom back, oh, that's not okay, dear. I don't like it. Also, why am I speaking in this accent right over here in Michigan? I mean, it's not as far over into Wisconsin and Minnesota as you're trying to put on there.
Not okay, says my governor.
Oh, that's Whitmer. Oh, awkward.
But let's be real. They're making fun of Michigan.
This is a theater kid. So millennials get this a little bit more than Generation X and the boomers do, because you guys were allowed to bully people who acted weird in school. We weren't really allowed to do that, or else they'd say we'd cause Columbine. So these theater kids were like, well, I'm going to tell you, I'm kind of a shoves hands in pockets, regular guy. And I like to think that we can, music starts in the background, really be on key together. This is just Dear Evan Hansen, the candidate, and it hurts my very soul. Essentially, this is if Christian contemporary music was a candidate but without any of the morals. And again, just people say this doesn't matter. This is just like Curtis Sliwa, who ran around in the red beret and is like, no one's going to think I'm weird because I'm wearing a raspberry beret from a Prince song. But anyway, this is the same kind of thing.
I am going to be working on our behalf. I am going to be telling the stories on our behalf. And you better believe I'm going to be doing it with a little bit of joy, a little bit of enthusiasm, a little bit of energy, and a little bit of stick it to them.
Okay, so, I mean, obviously the Chris Farley comparison has been made a couple of times. When I said that she's like SpongeBob the hall monitor, guys, I wasn't joking.
Hall monitor SpongeBob reporting for duty, ma'am. I'm ready to assume my position in the hall. I will protect all that are weak in the hall. All rules will be enforced in the hall. Okay.
Yeah, same thing. Radio crew will catch you on the other side of the commercial break. Lots more to cover tonight on the show. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. And then, of course, the Chris Farley nonsense.
Oh, Matt's gonna be your shadow. Here's you, here's Matt. There's you, there.
It's just Haley Stevens.
I am going to be working on our behalf.
Now, why does that matter? Why do we actually talk about this here? Because Democrats have to provide something of value, some kind of substance, some oomph, a little bit of something to bring you out to the polls. Not just, I'm not the other person. In a presidential election, the I'm not the other person argument can work. It can. There can actually be a little bit of substance to it. It might actually be effective. The problem is that, that's not something that actually draws out the voters any other time. Now, after tonight's show, we're actually going to be over on the new Tony Kinnett Cast YouTube channel. We're going to be showing a little bit of an interview, or I should say a debate from today that I participated in, specifically on this new direction for the Democrat Party that they're going in Michigan, is where they're field testing it, because Michigan is a swing state. It's also a crucial part of the blue wall. It matters who's elected in Michigan. So how is Abdul El-Sayed, whose ideas are very unpopular with independents, again, according to almost every single poll that I have found, except for at least, according to Adam Wren over at Politico, was saying earlier today that Abdul El-Sayed says he's going to win by like 7 points over Mike Rogers. There's no poll that says this, though. All of the polls that I've seen so far have Haley Stevens beating Mike Rogers, the Republican, by maybe a point or two. It's still in danger zone territory. And then Abdul El-Sayed gets skunked by Mike Rogers in the midterms. So either you have really bad ideas that don't bring independents or moderates out to the election, because again, I said what I'm going to be watching tonight, and what I've asked some of my team to keep an eye on in Michigan is, for example, Clinton Township, north of Detroit. That's where a lot of the auto workers are. That's where the Allison manufacturing plant is for Ford. That's what I'm going to be keeping an eye on, the turnout there, because so far this evening, we're getting some results in, at least on the turnout. There are a lot of people turning out for the primary today in Michigan. Well, there's been a ton of money spent on some of this really, really bizarre election. And of course, Abdul El-Sayed has brought kind of the same weird energy, but I want you to get a bit of a feel here for how some of the other candidates right now, some of the other candidates in this election are trying to bring things forward. There's one candidate, her name is Hillary Scholten. She is currently the Democrat representative for Michigan's 3rd, and I'm also told watches the Tony Kinnett Cast, though she's a Democrat. So thanks for tuning in, Representative Hillary. Here's what she had to say about why you should vote for Haley Stevens, and also for her against Abdul El-Sayed.
Hey folks, it's election day here in Michigan, and I am on the ballot. I'm asking for your vote, but I also want to make sure that you get out and vote in another really important election, the Senate primary. Elections are about choices, and today, Michiganders have a really important race in the Democratic Senate primary. It's not just about who stands for us, though of course that is the most important thing, and that is Haley Stevens. It's also about who can win in November. The Democratic nominee will go on to face Mike Rogers, Republican.
Okay, so everything that she said so far is correct. Now here's one issue, and this is no offense to Hillary. She's talking like me. She's talking like a pundit. That's this kind of giving a news report for a morning news show. So for those of you who didn't know, I'm the national correspondent for the Daily Signal. And during the day, I do a lot of various TV hits and radio hits and things. If I go on a morning show, the attitude is very different than if I go throw hands on Abby Phillips on CNN Newsnight. Very, very different environment. And specifically here, what this representative, Hillary, is bringing to the table here is a very clear line of we have a choice to make in November. This isn't going to drive voters to the polls. It's great for a morning talk show. And then she's a Democrat representative, so she's going to toss it away by...
If we want to protect our freedoms, stop the extremist Republican agenda led by Trump, and fight for affordability, we need the strongest possible Democrat to win this primary.
Okay, so then she talks about Abdul El-Sayed, and I'll play a clip here in a second, where again, a lot of Democrats are turning on this socialist and radical Islamic wing that's becoming the mainstay of the Democratic Party. Before we get there, though, just a quick note before the radio crew joins us. Hillary Scholten, I know you're listening, or at least you watch from time to time. Eyes here for just a moment here, pal. If you're going to say you're going to fight the affordability crisis, you got to give me some things you're going to do. Give me the thing. What are you going to do to lower affordability? List them. And if you're like John Fetterman and you end up coming away and saying it's a lot of stuff that Republicans are doing, or like Joe Manchin said, a lot of stuff Republicans are doing, it might be time to take another look here. Radio crew, welcome back from your commercial break. Let's dive into some more of the insane nonsense, because we're now getting into really good Civil War fun. And I don't mean over in Iran, although, oh, how I wish for balkanization and good times over there. No, I mean between the DSA members and Chuck Schumer. This is supposed to be a time in the midterms. Everyone assumes that going into a midterm election, both parties are well-oiled machines. They have all of their money that's ready to go. They have their top-down lines. They have their, in the 2024 election, it's Kamala is for them and Donald Trump is for you. That kind of a thing, that just for they, them, I'm for you. That kind of down the ballot messaging. It's supposed to be a thing. And that's not happening this time. It's a very, very different midterm. It's also made a lot more strange by the fact that Republicans are also fist fighting each other, but in a totally different way. And that the administration, the Trump administration, is actually doing a couple of things here that appear to be kind of delivering on some of the promises during the administration. So right up front here, this news shared my way by producer Jennifer. The Department of Justice has detailed a very, very pervasive home health scam in which caregivers were billing Medicaid for visits while they were sitting in jail. So again, all of this fraud that you were told didn't exist, all of this fraud that you were told wasn't happening, wasn't a problem, these kinds of things that Americans sent Trump in to take care of regarding crime in the country, regarding federal spending that's going to the wrong groups, to the wrong people. Well, now what we're seeing is an administration who is essentially trying to send a large part of the DOJ and the State Department and the Department of Homeland Security after these kinds of schemes. Believe it or not, we're actually seeing a couple of results. So this coming from today, the Department of Justice.
Reported patients with causing over $400,000 in false claims to Medicaid for services the aides supposedly performed when, get this, they were actually hospitalized, working at other jobs, and even in jail.
There is so much fraud in these federal entitlement programs. There is so much fraud all throughout all of them. Every single federal program, whether it involves Head Start and pre-K, we're going to get to that in a second, whether it involves Medicare and Medicaid, and all of these programs that those who say universal health care, they want to massively expand Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare for all. That's what Bernie Sanders says when he's flying around the country and he's looking at AOC's backside. He says, listen, ladies and gentlemen, listen. We have to have the Medicare for all because the big insurance companies, you see, when you commit big insurance fraud, they sue you and they send you to jail. But if you commit Medicare fraud, then you can send that money to Somalia. That's very, very important for the socialists. And the Trump administration doing the investigation into these federal programs are finding a lot of people, again, if you or I are just like a week late on our back taxes, the IRS is knocking at your door. If you or I don't fill out the forms correctly on financial disclosures, on mortgage documents, for some reason we get caught. But then we hear cases like this, and it takes an administration dispatching Dr. Oz, try telling someone 20 years ago about that, to go dig through all of these cases and find case after case, hundreds of thousands of cases, as the individual citing here says, from the Department of Homeland Security, of people who are just writing anything up as a Medicare expense. Oh, I'm doing Medicare checks up. I don't know if you know this, but during the commercial break, I did a Medicare check on you. You didn't even notice it, but I'm charging the federal government for it. That's the kind of idea here.
Yes, the allegations include a scheme that billed taxpayers for home care services provided when the person supposedly doing that work was sitting behind bars. That, of course, is not health care. It's just pure theft.
Now, hang on a second here. The person behind bars, any kind of communication that occurs, I don't know if you guys are quite aware that you're supposed to be reading inmates' letters both ways. Not because you're trying to read their private stuff, but to prevent these kind of things. It turns out that criminals often do criminal activity. I know, shocker, huge surprise.
Another indictment charges a father and son for engaging in a fraudulent Medicaid scheme. In short, according to the allegations, the father didn't need the care and the son wasn't giving it.
Oh, what a surprise. Just blatant, right in the open kind of fraud. Excellent and exciting stuff. And again, the administration has made it clear over the last couple of months that they are targeting these kind of instances. Also, by the way, Immigration Customs Enforcement doing a considerable amount of fraud exposure, because it turns out that those people who, as Hakeem Jeffries has said consistently, illegal immigrants in this country do not receive any federal benefits, not a single dollar. Those were his words. He has said them again and again and again. And if you even try to so much as suggest that perhaps we should really open up and take a look at some of the individuals participating in these fraudulent programs, you have, again, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and a bunch of other Democrat states that are now suing the Trump administration because they're worried that the federal government might get a hold of your Social Security number. I don't know if you know this, but the Social Security Administration is part of the federal government. Guess what? If they're the ones that gave you the Social Security number, the feds already have your Social Security number. But Josh Shapiro's got to say, well, we can't have them looking through data. Why? So that you might actually find cases of fraud like this. After so many lawsuits over nothing, one has to ask the question. Additionally, when you ask House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who will not be the House Minority Leader for very long, one way or the other, Hakeem Jeffries says, you're not even allowed to touch any of these federal spending programs. Don't you dare touch all of these bloated, fraudulent programs funneling money to everyone but Americans.
Reported patient.
Oh, I loaded that over. Here's Hakeem Jeffries saying exactly that. Here you go.
Social Security and Medicare are not entitlement programs. They are earned benefits.
No. They are entitlement programs because as an American citizen, you are entitled to them. They're not earned benefits. If you become an American citizen, at age 64, 65, you still get full 100% Social Security. Doesn't matter. Even if you haven't paid into it your entire life, you still get access to the benefits. No matter if you have been an American citizen for 2 seconds or 2 decades, you get access to the same benefits. They are entitlement programs. They're not earned benefits. That's not how that works. You didn't earn money from me.
Earned benefits. You work hard for those benefits. Pay into those benefits and deserve those benefits. They are earned benefits. Democrats will make sure that Donald Trump and House Republicans keep their hands off your Social Security and your Medicare.
So this is the line. This is where they want to go. And by the way, in a twisted bit of irony, Alanis Morissette, get your guitar. It is actually Hakeem Jeffries' messaging that's going to drive more voters to the polls in November than the Abdul El-Sayed free Medicare and also the Jews and AIPAC and Israel. Midterms do not function with foreign policy. They don't. They do not. Midterms do function on the 3 issues that voters always see right in front of them. Issue number 1 is the economy. Things aren't great. Things aren't terrible. It's kind of a meh. Still waiting on the end of the gambles to see because it's an administrative-run economy right now. Number 2, people care about crime. The Trump administration is going after crime right now. Number 3, they care about government accountability, which so far has been kind of a 6 in one, half a dozen in the other. All depends on the narrative. We're going to talk about that because that's where Schumer thinks he can make up some ground, finally, against the socialists. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, so Chuck Schumer has decided to take the exact same approach as Hakeem Jeffries. It's just not working very well because, again, all of the socialist camp are actively coming for Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer's heads, respectively. Doesn't matter, though. Chuck Schumer making a huge deal today about what? Todd Blanche. Because, again, amid all of the stories of fraud, amid all of the cases, new report, 9.2 million people, 46% of Medicaid expansion enrollees did not qualify for the program. This is according to the Will Cain citation of health organization presidents testifying before the House committees today. Quote, as many as 9.2 million adults that enrolled in Obamacare's Medicaid expansion may not have met federal eligibility requirements back in 2024. 46% of the expansion enrollment, estimated $33 billion in taxpayer costs, fraudulent. Excellent. So while this is going on, what's Chuck Schumer bending all of his will towards?
Senate Republicans again just rubber stamped Trump's corruption with their vote to advance Todd Blanche from the Judiciary Committee, instead of seeing Blanche's so-called deal for the sham that it is. Republicans are once again taking Trump's personal attorney at his word. Now
Schumer's going to make this all about that apparently Blanche is working behind the scenes to deliver a super ultra pardon for Trump and his sons so that no one can spend the next 20 years just having the IRS audit Trump every 15 seconds. Because apparently they forget that also they say that Trump is super old and is going to like die any day. Just beautiful, incredible times over here. But anywho, Schumer's saying that Todd Blanche is the real threat. And by the way, I'll agree with Chuck Schumer here. Todd Blanche is in fact the threat towards all of these bloated federal programs because I've told you this before. Pam Bondi, the first pick, well, the second pick, not really great, Bob. Would get up in front of a podium and go, this president is doing things. Podium Barbie style. Wouldn't really do a whole lot herself. Then Todd Blanche stepped into the breach after Pam Bondi was given the... And Todd Blanche got to work. He didn't give you a lot of promises. He's just like, all right, today we're announcing all these people are getting arrested. Today we're announcing all of these people are getting charged. Today people are announcing, and we would just started getting results. So Schumer losing his ever-loving mind because federal judges aren't going to step in and prevent Todd Blanche from levying more charges than a fraudulent credit card company.
Shame. Clearly, the Senate GOP is willing to go along with Trump's tax fraud, Trump's egregious, breathtaking corruption. And let's not forget that Blanche still hasn't released 3 million pages of Epstein files.
Let's try that. Best of luck to you. Best of luck to you. It's not going to resonate. I'm not seeing it. Now, we do have a quick update for you here from Pennsylvania. The Associated Press with 20% of the votes counted, but a really, really sizable lead here in the Republican primary against Senator Mark Warner on the Democrat side, who's unopposed, Burt Mezuzua. And if I pronounce that correctly, that would be the first time ever. Burt Mezuzua ended up being called for that election, the primary winner against David E. Williams. So Burt Mezuzua at 37,000 votes, that's 53% of the vote. David E. Williams, 27% of the vote. And then Kim Farrington, 19.7% of the vote. I'm sorry, Virginia. If I said another state there, I meant Virginia. I apologize. I thought I said Virginia. The Senator Mark Warner should have been a bit of a tip-off there, not Pennsylvania. Heaven knows why I said Pennsylvania, and I apologize. There's a lot of states going on this evening. Now, let's bring it back to the complete Civil War panic meltdown that I was promising. Radio crew, welcome back from your commercial break. See, Schumer knows that just saying Donald Trump is corrupt and he doesn't like Todd Blanche, that's not going to help. That's not really going to do it for people. Not really going to give them the oomph to get out there and go do some voting. So instead, Schumer now has to finally address the elephant in the room, and that's the socialists coming for him. Here's what he had to say today.
And Manu.
Thank you. Is the rise of the DSA good for your party?
Look, we are a big tent party, and being a big tent party is a strength, not a weakness.
Okay, here's the issue with that, though. Like the whole big tent party thing that both parties are talking about, the big tent party only works as long as you guys have a core set of values in the middle that's holding up the tent poles holding up the tent. The reason that there are some Republicans that don't fit inside the big tent is because they believe things that Republicans are deeply opposed to by the party's planks. And on the technocrat populist, or excuse me, on the technocrat establishment side of the party and on the populist side of the party, there are things that don't fit in the big tent. And on the Democrat side of the aisle, you can't just say, oh, we're a big tent, everyone's a Democrat, you're a Democrat, you're a Democrat, like Oprahing everyone into the Democrat Party. It doesn't work like that. Again, I will remind you that there are individuals of the DSA in the leadership that are more than happy to explain to you that this is supposed to be a blood feud, guillotine-style revolution. Now, we've played the clips of the DSA leadership going on all television and saying, yes, abolish the Senate, make the Supreme Court direct appointments by the House of Representatives, same with the president, jerry-rig that system, all of this other nonsense. And Nicholas Vargas from the Central Brooklyn Democrat Socialists of America, when they say abolish rent, when they say that Mamdani's rent freezes, what they mean is the scene from The Dark Knight Rises, where you drag the landlord out of the building and like execute him in the street. There you go.
Because we have a large enough constituency in these tenant unions to actually, force with leverage that, if they don't kind of pass or push, these legislations that will, kick them out or throw them out in the street and guillotine them. And then,
Oh, you thought I was joking when I said guillotine? Now, shout out to the public school. I'm not usually one to criticize the pronunciation of various words, but guillotine, really? Public school education coming in clutch there.
And then we need those kind of strong numbers in that constituency, but also that socialist way of life and that ability and that militancy to be ready to withhold your rent and withhold your labor with your neighbors, in order to get these, hard fought legislative stuff or even rent strikes to get enacted and to get pushed. That's how we got the eviction moratorium and how we got the extensions. That's how we got right to counsel in the 2019 tenant laws.
By the way, people always ask about the bridge from socialism to communism. So communism, the full seizing of production, all industry run by the state, no private ownership of property, of business, of anything, no individual rights, only rights of the collective. On the socialist side of things, the bridge from that to communism comes in what he said in the last part of the way of life under socialism. Whereas if you don't like a policy, you have the right to go on strike and to not pay rent, which means that you have an entire group of individuals who can't evict you if they're not getting any money, because again, landlords who are all painted out to be Mr. Monopoly, that's a pretty brain dead take, but kind of a common one. You have that part of the economy which stops. And then if you have this complete right to unionization wherever, it means that your job can't fire you for any reason whatsoever. You're all going on strike, doesn't matter. The economy grinds to a halt until the government then gives you what it wants or gives you what you want. That kind of a hostage situation. So that's the bridge, because that requires then the nationalization of the organization. And that's how you move to the full seizing of the means of production. It's not exactly a hidden thing. It's pretty common. And how do we know it's happened? Because in every single actual socialist country in which you have various state governments that have taken control of industry and have then run that wholesale, it always leads to, with that right to unionization, that exact path. And it doesn't seem to provide any of the. But again, when I told you at the beginning of the show here that Chuck Schumer, his big threat is that the Trump administration might just possibly be going after certain ultimate, forever funded kind of federal benefits. Chuck Schumer tries to say that, Trump's going to try to take education away from the preschoolers. It's the same route.
Trump will soon announce plans to gut Head Start, without any thought of how it will hurt hundreds of thousands of children. That means no math or literacy requirements, no health or safety screenings, no guarantee children can access medical and dental services. Trump's changes will hurt America's most vulnerable children and leave their families in the lurch.
By the way, what does this actually mean? Well, according to the Department of Health and Human Services, the Trump administration is not actually gutting Head Start. It is simply reducing certain governmental regulatory structures that funnel money through public school systems, that funnel money through accreditation organizations, and actually requires individuals participating in the Head Start program to directly report what is going on to the state regulation infrastructure, which means this: it's much, much harder to commit fraud. Chuck Schumer says, though, well, that's gutting Head Start. You're going to have all of these preschoolers who are just going to be bumping into walls because they won't know how to do anything. Oh, the horror. The idea that you can kind of shuffle on by with this as kind of your mask for why we need the socialist flank, you don't even see old-style Democrats propping this up. John Fetterman, of course, is a good example of this. Joe Manchin, we're going to talk about a little bit later, because, again, this all comes down to the Abdul El-Sayeds and the Zoran Mamdani's perspectives on things. You know what? I changed my mind. We're going to cover that stuff now. We'll come back to the Republicans shivving each other in the in the meantime, because Zoran Mamdani is now trying to backpedal as fast as he can on his little, you're going to need ID in order to shop at the state-run New York City grocery stores routine. So yesterday, as you will recall, Mamdani and again his socialist administration in New York were raked over the coals. And why were they raked over the coals? Because they were asked, hey, you have all of these, you say you're going to save everybody money and you're going to have 30 to 40% cheaper staples, meat, grains, vegetables. How are you going to keep people from like abusing that? Because you might have scalpers or resellers who then, turn around and sell it for 20% off the market price average. How are you going to keep people from abusing the system here? And Mamdani, standing right there, answered it in this way. Quick reminder.
How are you going to keep people from taking advantage of that, that deal, basically? And is there going to be a limit on the number of items that someone can take that are discounted at that level from that essential basket?
So our RFP makes very clear that this is a program for New Yorkers to be able to put food on the table, not a program for people to be able to make a quick buck through reselling. I'm going to pass it over to our EDC head, G-Pack, to add some additional details.
Yes, if you look at our RFP.
So then she takes over. Mamdani steps back one step.
For the operator, we are looking to make sure that we target New Yorkers, whether it be at sort of a library card esque, and also.
So she says, whether it be some kind of a library card ask.
We manage who's buying, and that is focused on everyday New Yorkers. So we are mindful of that. And so we're going to make sure that we have all the things in place to ensure that that does not happen.
Okay, they're going to make sure they have all of the things in place to do it. There's the actual structure. It's right there, clear for you. Mamdani immediately went out and started backpedaling because the hypocrisy is kind of there. After all, I was told that black people were too poor and that women were too stupid, and married women, you're SOL. You can't go get an ID. I mean, gosh, can you imagine? That's like a poll tax, like a whole $10 ID card in the state of New York. Que surprise. I mean, you can't do that to people. The horror. And so then Mamdani immediately runs out and goes on with Joy Reid and says, ignore what you heard. Ignore what it is that we just told you from my official office statement. Actually, no ID needed.
When we're talking about a city-run grocery store, one in each borough, which, by the way, you do not need an ID to shop at, no matter what you've just heard in the news of today. We're talking about actually addressing the question of skyrocketing grocery prices.
So he tries to just kind of shovel, no matter what you've heard in the news and the media today, Habibi,
how are you going to...
Your own staff in front of you at the podium said they were going to be doing the library card, Blockbuster card, LA Fitness card, ID card, Boogaloo, Hoogaloo, Roogaloo. That was you. A2, Zoran.
Seen in the last 6 or 7 years alone an increase in grocery prices of around 30%, and we are going to be delivering a city-run grocery store, one in each borough, 5 in total, that will have the staples of a shopping experience, an essential basket of goods that are discounted by 30% compared to typical retail prices.
Now here's the fun, because there is a little bit of fun here that's actually really interesting, and it goes down to how Zoran is able to promise that you're going to see these prices be a little lower. He's not forcing those 5 stores to follow the same regulations that bodega owners and supermarket owners have to follow. So if you or I were to move to New York City, God forbid, and open some kind of a store, you and I would have to pay extra money, all kinds of extra money. I mean, entire Seinfeld plot scripts worth of nonsense in regulations just to operate a store. His stores aren't going to have to follow that, so it's cheaper to run. But also, according to the New York Post's estimations here, and also a lot of national economic firms on the left and the right, it's going to be way more expensive. And it's going to be a huge drain on New Yorkers instead of a surplus. So there's a lot of backpedaling going on over there. And it's truly funny because you have this kind of weird juxtaposition. Radio crew, I'm sorry, I have to send you over to the commercial break. We're going to dive into some more of this news on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Now, this kind of bifurcation, this juxtaposition, these two things that don't mix, is the Democrats promising, I'm going to give you everything, universal health care, and I'm going to give you all of the free food and the free housing. And sure, it comes with the guillotine and maybe, telling you to commit suicide if you're in Canada. But I mean, hey, it'll be great. And if you don't like it, then you know who it's the Jews, the Israelis. They want us to bomb everyone. It's that kind of retarded nonsense. So in that frame, at the same time, you actually have to get out there and make some of this possible. The only way to make any of these things possible is to incorporate Republican policies, which are getting rid of regulations that impede business, to get things rolling. Kathy Hochul, believe it or not, a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. The governor of New York, after shutting down a nuclear power plant in 21, now New York's ready. Hey, we're ready to do some nuclear plants yet again, and has announced they're going to start the process and removing some regulations to get more power, far more power than you could get from solar, far more power to the umpteenth degree than windmills, far more power than coal or natural gas. I'm sorry. I know there's obviously a lot of fossil fuel goodness in the United States, but nuclear power, it's just the most potent and it's the safest. It produces the least amount of waste too. Yep. And so when you're looking at that situation here, other than geothermal, nuclear provides the least amount of waste. They're kind of getting around to this Ezra Klein style model of abundance, which could be an actual opportunity for the Democrats to surge here. It could be. And please don't take it from me. Take it from Joe Manchin, former West Virginian senator, also one of the stopgaps against removing the filibuster, making it very clear the socialist high extremist approach, this ain't it, Chief.
Heather, could you ever support a self-described socialist candidate?
No. No way. My God, no.
And even if they have some good ideas?
I support the good ideas, but how could you support some of the crazy stuff they're for?
I support the good ideas. What are the good ideas? In a magical world, would I love, for example, for like healthcare just to be just free, amazing? And this is going to be the most niche reference. In Halo 3 ODST, there was a video game in which you are fighting some kind of alien occupation of Earth as you sneak through the city in some kind of noir, rain-filled detective journey. And you pass all of these like health pack stations, because you got to have health packs in video games. And the advertisements all suggest that humanity has basically cured all diseases, and you can simply stop at this kiosk and instantly be cured of any disease, called Optican. Told, very niche reference. If that were a thing, then super duper, it would be a good idea. But suggesting that we're going to create the National Health Service of the UK or Canada, which suck up a storm, no.
Seen their platform? They're for dismantling everything that we know, whether it be the structure of government, Congress itself, or the Senate they want to get rid of. And then they start talking about all the crazy things. No police, no this, no this, no that. Are you crazy? We want a crime-free area. We have to have police for that. Yes. We want a strong defense. We want a strong border. But if Democrats can't say that, and they start lining up with the socialist demands of what you are to be a socialist, energy will be gone. There'll be no energy, okay? We have right now a tremendous amount of energy we're producing, and the world depends more on us than ever before.
Hey, man, it's almost like we planned that. Radio crew, welcome back from your commercial break. We are getting ready in just 11 minutes and 30 seconds to find out if SpongeBob the Hall Monitor mixed with Chris Farley or Abdul El-Sayed is going to be the next bachelor of Michigan in the Senate. And again, the Senate's a big club. Getting a very strange senator out there that says some wild things, that does some wild things, that is quite a significant move. It is. And it is something that the rest of the Democrats are very well aware of. That is why you have people like the other presidential hopefuls, like, for example, Pete Buttigieg, who gets out there and says, these socialists are where the energy, they're great, they're wonderful, let's do it to it.
Because the Supreme Court said you can basically systematically dismantle black voting power, as long as you say that the reason you're dismantling black voting power is for partisan advantage, then they're out there doing it.
It's an intellectual outrage.
Why do you got to get out there? Why do you got to get out there and support all of this stuff? Why do you got to get out there and scream and yell and do all of this stuff? Well, because they're coming for you with the racism. They're reorganizing all of the districts. That's why we've got to go in and go all in on the socialists. That's why Pete says you've got to get all in, because if you don't, we're all going to die. Now, again, that is a wild, wild approach. Again, personally, I don't recommend that being the route that one might take. I don't think that that's particularly wise. I don't think that that's necessarily the route. But as long as you just get someone up in front of people to say there's no other way, we're all going to die, it's all over, the Republicans are extremists and fascists and all of these other things, this is the kind of stuff that you're going to end up with. Even the more kind of moderate awkwards falling in line, which is where you will see the rest of the party. Now, in the meantime, Republicans are having their own fist fight. And it's pretty bizarre to see, because for the first time in my entire life, I've never seen this before. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Again, I was born in 95, so my entire life not going to be as extensive. I've never seen Republicans, as time goes on, more Republicans joining the more populist, traditional conservative side of the aisle. I've never seen it, ever. As the debate goes on, I'm seeing more Republican senators signing on to the no debate, no sleep till Brooklyn, or no recess until Save America Act. I wasn't expecting that. It all boils down to this. One comment today, or a rant, I should say, and a good one, from Senator Kennedy of Louisiana, otherwise known as the Baptist potluck's spirit animal. No straighter talk will you get with a Southern twang than Senator Kennedy. On the Republican side of the aisle, here's the sentiment among the American people on the right.
I can't tell you how many meetings I've been in the last 6 months that should have been an email, that could have been an email, to talk about the Russian sanctions bill and to talk about election integrity and to try to get a consensus. It's not going to happen. Not in my natural lifetime, not in yours, Madam Chair, though you'll live longer than me, and not in yours, our friends in the gallery. We gotta vote. And we need to vote right now. And the American people expect it. And if there is a motion made on this floor to have us remain here until we get our work done, I'm going to vote yes. I'm going to vote yes. I can tell.
Now, I'm sorry. I want to make this clear. When I say that Kennedy here is one of the Republicans who's signing on to, again, the no sleep till Save America Act stuff, I'm not saying that he was more of an establishmentarian. I mean, what he's saying here is 100% crystal clear, correct. He's absolutely right. He is absolutely right on the money. We've been doing all of this. We've been talking about all this procedure and the insides and the niceties and the can we, should we, all this other stuff. Pass the bill.
Right now. And what is the work we need to get done? In no particular order, we need to pass the Russian sanctions bill. We need to pass the budget resolution, which will include election integrity. We need to confirm Todd Blanche.
Now, that's another chaos and another fist fight we're going to get to in a second. Democrats right now are doing all of their fist fighting either on network TV or they're doing it from their social media sort of back channel or even the private conversations. Republicans are having the fights on the floor of the Senate. I've never seen this before in my entire life. Now, okay, spending aside. You've seen spending, Chip Roy of Texas, I can't believe we're doing this to the American people. And then Mike Lawler will get up there and go, I can believe we're doing it and we need to do more. And then Victoria Spartz gets up there and goes, I'm not on any committees. And that's like Republicans normally arguing. That's fair. This in the Senate, though, this is a different bird.
We need to pass the continuing resolution to keep government open until December the 11th. We need to vote on the cryptocurrency bill, which we've spent years on.
What does all of this have to do? Because the Senate is bogged down in procedure. This is the funniest thing to me. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace of Star Wars. Sorry, I'll throw in some sports references in the second half of the show. Go IU. But in the very first episode of the prequels, the Star Wars franchise for the prequels, episode 1, Palpatine is essentially allowing Naboo to be under invasion and all this mess because he has the Senate bogged down in procedures. And that's meant to be the audience, this sign of a bloated legislature that's good for absolutely nothing. Now, it went over like a lead balloon because people didn't used to tune in to watch Star Wars for politics. But it was so obvious. It's like, why won't they just vote on the thing? It doesn't make any sense to me. Why not just do the thing? This is what the Senate is right now. And it is because of the leadership transferred from Mitch McConnell of Kentucky to John Thune. And it is just the way that all of these little rules that Republicans always follow and Democrats never do. And then they'll get in front of you and they'll tell you that actually they were doing the right thing all along. So Thune, again, right now, Republicans are having this big fist fight over Todd Blanche for Attorney General. Again, he's the acting Attorney General right now. He's in this whole confirmation process. You heard Chuck Schumer freaking out about it. Over the Save America Act, and then like a bunch of other backed up legislation that should have been passed ages ago. But the Senate won't just go vote on things and then debate. They're like, well, the subcommittee for the second committee is on schedule for 3 hours after the re-taping of the second committee vote of the third ancillary action of the... Robert's Rules of Order were not meant to be some type of cult, Chief. And yet here's John Thune, just...
Busy week in the Senate. A lot going on. A lot of... We're juggling a lot of balls right now, but there are some things that we intend to get done this week. And the first is to ensure that we get about 75 of the president's nominations through.
Look at how proud he is of himself here.
In block. And so there are a number of very qualified nominees that the president has put forward. And if we can get those across the finish line this week, and we intend to, that...
Radio crew, I will have to sign out. I'll save you the trouble. He brags about something that could have been done in 5 minutes about 2 months ago. We'll see you guys on the radio side tomorrow. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. We've got a lot more to continue on the live stream, youtube.com/Daily Signal. We'll see you there. So John Thune gets up in front of the country and goes, we've been juggling a lot of balls. And I mean, that joke killed on the first season of Andy Griffith. When Aunt B said, oh, you boys juggling a lot of balls. And then Don Knotts was like, Andy? And then like the episode credits end and you got the whistle. All right, that's John Thune starting off there. And so two of the corpses next to him were like, and then he says, we've got a whole 75 confirmation appointments there. Only here's the thing. If the Senate went to actual recess, the president could just recess appointments, all of them. But John won't. Because the entire point of the Senate for John Thune, at least in this current strategy, is to do a whole lot of nothing. Nothing. There's this old idea, and it's pervasive throughout the political landscape, and I've become increasingly annoyed with it throughout the last couple of years that I've worked in politics. There was this idea that here in the conservative world, we never slap right. We never slap right. No, there's a bigger foe to fight. No, we don't. No. Here's my take. During the general election season, I am less inclined to fight fellow Republicans, conservatives, or those on the right, whatever, because there is, in fact, a bigger foe to fight. But my brothers and sisters in Christ, it just so happens we are in the primary season. And in the primary season, while Republicans have power, I want to know why you should be there in Congress. I want to know why it is that you should be doing things supposedly on my behalf. Why am I paying you? This is, by the way, some of the conversation that I pressed against some of my own legislators. And believe it or not, over the last couple of years, unlike certain senators from the South Dakotan side of the country, it just so happens that in Indiana, at least, some of my representatives and senators have turned around and started doing some more online with the active Republican, more conservative and populist members of the Senate and the House. I was shocked to see Representative Jefferson Shreve of the 6th turn around and look at Representative Maria Salazar over the Amnesty bill, the Dignidad Act, and tell her to, I believe his words in the committee were, piss off, leave me alone. I didn't know Shreve had it in him. I was like, wow, no kidding. And then the same with Senator Todd Young has now come out alongside Jim Banks and said no recess till till the Save America Act. What's going on? I'm sorry. I'm just really, really happy to see it. It's a nice thing to see every once in a while. And while John Thune is trying to pat himself on the back, he can't avoid the reality that a lot of the Republican Party in every state is getting sick and tired of having senators that are just blocks of wood. Just Gumby in the freezer, not moving, just kind of laying there, doing a whole lot of nothing for nobody.
Isolated by the president when he says he wants you to stay in session, wants you to pass the Save America Act?
Well, I think...
So the question is, you've been talking to the president, you're going to pass the Save America Act, you're going to do anything here? If there are obstructions, who are the obstructions?
The president, I've heard from him a couple times this morning on issues that he cares about. Wouldn't say I'm isolated, no. I mean, I've been very clear about the prospects for the Save America Act. And the only thing I've said all along is we have voted on the Save America Act 5 times.
That's very misleading. By the way, that's very, very misleading. You're like, wait a minute, where was I for these votes? When the Senate says they voted on the Save America Act here, no. You voted on whether or not you would consider voting on the procedure to the new vote of the next day sometime to consider the voting for the Save America Act. That's what it was. These aren't 5 whole Senate votes where everyone was on the record. I know, I've been watching. So that's just misleading.
It was the pending business on the floor of the Senate for over 2 weeks.
Why was it the pending business on the Senate for the floor for 2 weeks? Why? Why 2 weeks? You're the leader of the Senate. You set the schedule.
And I am willing to, in any way possible, get that across the finish line if there is a path to do it. But there are 2 realities and 2 facts you have to deal with. And the first is there are no Democrats who are going to vote for this. All 47 voted against the SAVE Act 5 times.
47. Now let's see. The majority in the Senate would be 51. And if there's 47 Democrats, well, like 45 and 2 independents who caucus with the Democrats, might be missing one there. That would leave 53 Republicans, which means you as the Senate leader, you have this really cool thing to do here. And I would do this when I was a teacher. If I had a student who was being the kind word here would be, if I had a student who was being a jackass, a certified hee-hawing jackass, after trying to work things quietly over a while, there comes a time when you use them as an example in front of the rest of the class. And that often breaks a kind of pride.
So let's make this an issue in the campaign. How about...
Okay. So that'll work. Oh, I'm sure. So Republicans who are 53, which means they can enforce a filibuster. Again, the filibuster, everyone's talking about breaking the filibuster, taking the filibuster, shaking and making, bop at the filibuster. Not the same thing here. The filibuster, if they bring the vote to the floor, then Democrats would be required to do some talking, a talking filibuster. There's this unwritten rule right now where if you don't have 60 votes and it's not financial and it's not, reconciliation, i.e. balancing the budget, then we're not even going to try. But for the vast majority of this country's history, you had the other side of the aisle argue why the bill shouldn't pass. And then either the side that put the bill forward would rescind the bill and say, all right, we'll do some rewriting. Or the bill will just go through after the other side kind of finished talking and exhausted themselves. That's how it worked. So in this point right now, Thune is I'm sorry, he's just being dishonest. The actual answer here, I'm sorry, I just don't care anymore. I don't care anymore. The idea that, you can't just call out offices. You and I know that it is Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, Tom Tillis of North Carolina, Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, John Cornyn of Texas, and then also John Curtis of Utah. Those are the Republican senators. You only need 4 of those to say they're not going to do it. Those are the senators that aren't going to do it. But instead of having balls, instead of having testosterone, instead of having cojones, you have Senate Majority Leader John Thune who's like, we just don't have the vote. I don't know who these votes could be. I don't know who they are. Or check it out. Again, this is why I think that the 17th Amendment should be repealed, is that then state legislatures who are upset, and from what I've seen right now, the Republican states, like all of these red states around the country and purple states with majority Republican legislatures, all of those states, every last one of them, every Republican Commonwealth and state have made it clear that they are very in support of the Save America Act. Every one of those Republican legislatures, which means that if you have senators that aren't doing anything, you could recall them and appoint a different senator. And also it would come with the wonderful side effect of people caring about their, state legislatures for once, which, just what a concept. And now we finally get to the second half here. So Thune's first rule is that I can't count to 50. And apparently Thune's retarded. Number 2, though, he says, we're not getting rid of the filibuster. And he invents a fan fiction for how the filibuster works.
So we're not, that's the point. So we're not getting any Democrats. The second thing is we are not getting rid of the legislative filibuster. The votes aren't there to do that. I've made it.
You don't need to, I'm sorry, this idea, the votes aren't there to get rid of the filibuster. You don't need a 60 vote ruling on getting rid of the filibuster. That's not a thing. And if the votes aren't there, tell us which Republicans aren't there for it. Maybe they can be persuaded. Maybe that by keeping it really ambiguous like this, what it prevents is a bunch of pressure coming into McConnell's office. It prevents Tom Tillis getting a bunch of calls. Now, again, McConnell, Tillis, Cassidy, and Cornyn, again, you only need 4. They're already on their way out, guys. They're retiring. Oh, you're going to strip their committee assignments? They don't care. They're already on their way out. They're a bunch of pissy old men who feel as though they've been wronged. Just, oh, my pearls. And so they are not going to do anything. So, guys, the answer is no. But Thune could at least have the courage to stand up and call them out for it. Because then in the next primary, you would have candidates that actually leaned into that stuff. I know, kind of cool.
Abundantly clear many, many times. And it seems to me some days that I'm the only one here who can count to 50 in this town. But we don't have the votes to get rid of the filibuster.
I'm the only one who can count to 50. You're the only one, theoretically, who knows where the Republicans stand. You're the leader. If you have people who are not playing ball, they have lost the right to private confidentiality. This happens in political organizations as well, by the way. Great example of that. Even when people disagree, you can be very cordial and you can at least work together on things. So, for example, just a very personal example here. I have a different view on foreign policy than another member of the Daily Signal team, than Bradley Devlin, our political editor. We have a very, very different opinion on the role of the United States in some of these conflicts. However, we also work rather well together on a number of private and public issues. If I ever started undermining Bradley at every single way and turn and undercutting him and throwing him to the wolves and acting like a general jackass, then he would have every right to go before the public and say, you know what? Tony Kinnett's the worst, and kind of rolling me off of the Thanksgiving table onto the floor. Thune's not doing that here, though. It's very, very bizarre. And it just comes from this old idea of we don't slap right. It's antiquated and it's not working because what does it matter if I'm sending a Republican Congress that's not even going to pass the bills that I voted for?
And we aren't flipping 10 Democrats to vote for the Save America Act. So those two realities are there. Now, is there somewhere in here with budget reconciliation that we can?
All right, so then he says the budget reconciliation, can we do the carrot and the stick? So if you play by the rules, we'll give you money. That's not going to work either. Now, last but not least on this topic, because I want to get to some of these election results that are coming out of Michigan as we start to get into now the polls closing and a very, very good time for all of this here. The confirmation of acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, you got to get a little bit more of the pearl clutching and the theater involved. And that brings us over to Susan Collins and John Cornyn. So while you have all of the socialists and the world's most awkward people getting behind the Abdul El-Sayed crew, the Republicans are all doing their own brand of goofy nonsense. So Susan Collins, thinking that this is going to make her really appealing to independents, wrote this really long tweet to quote the meme of Duke Nukem? Whoa, that's a lot of words. Too bad I'm not reading them. She writes this entire novel about while she thinks that Blanche is a good guy, but he's not going to promise to not pardon Donald Trump's sons. The Attorney General, guys, serves at the pleasure of the president. And I hate to tell you this because you know how much I hate just being very honest with you. The next president's Attorney General is going to be able to undo anything this Attorney General does, anything at all, because that's how administrative positions work. Lee Zeldin came in and knocked everything that the Biden EPA did out of the way. Chris Wright, same thing. Knocked everything the Biden Department of Energy chair did. Scott Bessent came in and he tore down all of the photos of Janet Yellen and burnt them and then did things differently. That's how things work. So she's doing a little theater. John Cornyn said he's come to some kind of super duper ultra agreement and he wants to make himself look like a big hero for doing this. Old men's egos.
Their assertion on behalf of the United States of America that the weaponization fund is dead. And of course, I expect them to live up to that in any future litigation. Given this agreement with Mr. Blanche, I expect the department to live up to this in future litigation, and I will vote to advance him out of the committee today. But my vote to advance Mr. Blanche's nomination goes beyond this document. We need a stabilizing force at the Department of Justice. And Mr.
Oh, no one cares. No one cares. I'm sorry. Just stop it. Just stop it. Now, the Senate Judiciary Committee did advance the nomination of Todd Blanche to be the Attorney General 12-10. Now, is it likely that we do see Blanche carrying the votes? Probably. I say probably here. Again, it depends on the McConnell kind of a thing, and whether he's able to roll back in at the last moment here. It wouldn't be the first time in the House or the Senate. Now, Cory Booker of New Jersey had to get his rant in because while the right is arguing over being useful, the left is still doing their it's the end of times, and it's also the Hunger Games, and it's also a fairy tale, and Donald Trump is also Narnia Hitler. Here's Cory Booker pulling out the angry eyes.
Ridiculous the corruption that we have normalized in America.
Now again, Cory Booker, the senator of the state whose governor is refusing to turn over any information on the 6,600 who were illegally on the voting ballot or on the voter registration, and the 400 who illegally voted at least, again, DHS estimates, because they don't have the documents yet, suggest somewhere between 33 and 35,000 at least. So this senator wants to tell you about corruption. Again, his co-senator, now another individual, but at the time, Bob Menendez, was taking gold bars from Egypt in bribes. So Cory Booker, who chaired, again, sat right next to Bob Menendez, the gold bar bribery boy from Egypt. And again, presiding the senator of the state of all of the voter fraud, apparently, due to software errors. He wants to tell you about corruption.
President's children can go out and sit on boards and make money. That is wrong, and that is corrupting.
I will remind you that Hunter Biden sat on, like half a dozen boards, and you never said a damn ding. Glass is already broken. Politicians' friends and kids, they sit on boards. It's nepotism. Do I like it? No. Is that the way that it is? Yeah. Absolutely. That's part of, it is in fact who you know. So, he's making all of this extra money on thing. Oh, I mean, if you really think you're going to cut that out of all politics forever? Again, am I endorsing anything? No. Do I think Trump's children should be sitting on any kind of boards at all? I don't necessarily think that's great. No. I was just critical yesterday of all the Qatar stuff. Absolutely. But this is your Todd Blanche gripe? Really?
But they have become so obsessed with the millions that the Bidens have made that they have ignored completely the billions of dollars that the Trump family is making.
So I've heard all of this stuff before, and we can talk about like liquid assets going up and then down. It is in fact a truism that in every presidential administration and in every congressional situation, those who are in Congress and those who are in charge of the country who do in fact know things before things move forward, yeah, you do in fact get financial gain from it because you know where things are beforehand. If the CEO of NVIDIA called me tomorrow and said, hey, Tony, for the next 3 months, we're going to totally change our technology policies and we're going to do something different, but we're not going to make a big deal about it. Even if I don't go and buy any stock, because, there'd be like insider trading questions there. Do you think that wouldn't change maybe even a little bit how I operate in the market? Just a smidgen? Find me a person that chooses not to act on knowledge that they have, and I'll take all of it back. None of that saying that nepotism is good or bad, but like making this your angry eyes moment, really?
That is like being obsessed and using a magnifying glass to study the stain on the living room carpet when behind you is a mountain of excrement.
Okay, so he tries to do his own little special take on the, ignoring the thorn or calling out the thorn with the mote in your eye. Props for at least not using the biblical analogy. I appreciate at least that kind of restraint. Now, I don't know if we're going to have time to talk about it tonight because I want to get over to the Francesca Hong in Wisconsin stuff. But Senator John Curtis of Utah and his amnesty bill are really, really, really bad. Really bad. I don't think it's going anywhere. We might have to talk about that tomorrow. I don't think we have the time tonight because former governor of Wisconsin, Scott Walker, and I got a chance to sit down today and talk a little bit about the Francesca Hong in Wisconsin situation. So we're going to pop right back out to reset the clock. We're going to come back in with some Governor Walker, and then we'll give you some election updates before we're out this evening. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Well, the Wisconsin primary is getting weirder, I don't know if I can say even spicier, just the more clips that we find from Francesca Hong, the socialist candidate, the more I just really wish we would have spent a little more time with kids in school on this kind of stuff. So, of course, to cover all of this, we bring on former governor of Wisconsin, Scott Walker, the guy with a Harley, currently running the Young America's Foundation, phenomenal organization. I know you've got a conference, a really big one coming up here pretty soon, don't you?
We do. The largest national conservative student conference, our college conference ever. Kick things off at Mount Vernon, and we're going to have a great lineup, but it's twice as big as the previous big one. So even though we're down on young people these days, the good news is there's a lot of young people that are in the fight for freedom.
And that's excellent. I love hearing it. I love seeing this. I know that a lot of the other kind of the youths, the college age kids and those in their young 20s are out in the autonomous zone in Madison. A friend of mine that I actually also a Wisconsinite, he was showing me some of the videos from this tent city. This is all over the latest police action that Francesca Hong got out and declared execution and murder over, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just outrageous. I mean, talk about failing the test of leadership. Even Tony Evers, as you know, understanding, followed things there. Tony Evers, the Democrat governor who messed up 6 years ago when he came out and said similar things to what Francesca Hong said. He didn't do that this time because he saw that literally started a fire, both figuratively and literally, in Kenosha, where good chunks of the downtown burned down after a very similar officer-involved shooting, which in the end the guy was exonerated because the person had a knife, resisted arrest, all the sorts of things we see with this case in Madison. But Hong called it an execution, largely because she went out in the street with a bullhorn and got baited into it by an angry mob. That's the last person we want holding any office, let alone the governorship.
I mean, as the former governor of Wisconsin, it is a kind of unique take that you've got on the inside of these kinds of things. I don't think I can say this because I walked up the Capitol steps amid the protests when you were in office. I don't think that you really can afford to be a governor that is baited into things, especially in a state like Wisconsin, where there's a ton of different kinds of groups on all sides of the aisles who have to work together.
Well, it's exactly it. But it's, I've said this for some time before recently. I thought Hong was going to win the primary. And I've even warned of late, even with all these videos of her saying abolish the police, abolish the Senate, get rid of Thanksgiving, all these other wild and crazy things that you hear from her and so many other Democratic socialists. The bottom line is, as you know, it is the ultimate swing state. This is the closest swing state in America. You've got TDS, so you've got you begin even after the primary next week with both candidates about even Steven. And so we can't presume, particularly with young people these days, like the ones we work with at Young America's Foundation, we see on college campuses so much liberal indoctrination. Plus, even beyond the liberals, there's just a general frustration from younger voters that they don't feel like they're in reach of the American dream. And so we can't take it for granted, even though we know the ideas don't work. Everything she's talking about has failed real time right down the way in Venezuela. But we can't assume that people know that.
So obviously we can dive into the insanity from obviously abolishing police and ICE to abolishing Thanksgiving and the cuckoo birds instead of the turkeys on that particular line. But I want to dive into, again, what you're working on now with college students at Young America's Foundation. There are a lot of young individuals, young Americans, who are disquieted about the state of the economy or disquieted about what they were told to go and pursue in college as opposed to how the economy looks now. What are y'all doing over at YAF in order to educate our next generations about liberty, but also providing them some optimism for the future as well?
Yeah, we're pushing back and understand that the free market is the way to solve these issues. It's already too much government, let alone what these Democratic socialists are pushing. But countering that with the real story, again, speakers like Dr. Daniel DiMartino, who not only has a PhD in economics, but actually could talk from real life experience about what it was like to grow up in Venezuela, a country that not that long ago was one of the most prosperous nations in the world because of their markets, their energy supplies. What happened? A Democratic socialist got elected there. He didn't get out of office. Maduro took his place. It's amazing you can vote these people in, but it's hard, if not impossible, to vote them out, pointing out that the economy was ruined. People were living in abject poverty, even people with jobs, picking through the garbage to try and find food. We don't want that, not only in Wisconsin, we don't want that in America anywhere. And so countering, say, if you want to enter the job market in the area you studied in, if you want to pursue your piece of the American dream by owning a home instead of waiting until you're 40, which is the median age across the country, which I get. It's frustrating, understandably so. But the answer is not the government. The government's already screwed things up. We want less government. Housing's a good example. Get government out of the way, streamline the permitting process, make it easy for people to build a home that a young family can find to be affordable on their own, not through a government subsidy. Those are things that, if anything, the government role thus far is what's driving the prices up. We need to drive prices down by getting the market back in play.
It's one of the bizarre ironies that I've seen in the last couple of weeks for the very few policy proposals that are being put forward by the DSA, setting the universal health care we promise kind of thing aside. I know that, or I've noticed that Zoran Mamdani, mayor of New York City, open socialist, that the way he's trying to make his new state-run grocery stores successful is he is cut away a lot of the restrictions, cut away a lot of the regulations that those grocery stores have to follow, while all of the privately owned bodegas, obviously from a lot of immigrant families that come in and try to set up a business, they have all of these extra regulations. But the Francesca Hong brand of socialism is about all of the regulations. How on earth do we square that circle?
Well, again, it just doesn't make any sense. It's why you compare it to two biggest areas of our economy. The government's involved with healthcare, education. Both tend to be the most screwed up. Both tend to be the highest cost.
In Canada, it's to die for.
Right. Well, and a great example on the contrast with these, what you just mentioned with the grocery stores, even in New York City, where are some of the few high-performing schools? They're charter schools. Why? Because they got a reprieve, even though they're public government-run schools, they got a reprieve from the teachers union and all the other restrictions. Therefore, the market actually played a role here. To me, when people say, for example, things like healthcare, do you defend the current system? I said, no, it is still, the current system, as we talk today, is still too much driven by the government. If you and I can get our cell phone out and get a plan that's affordable for us, no matter what we make for a living, why can't we do the same thing with education, with healthcare, with other areas where the government is all too heavily involved?
I mean, I think there's very little so far when I see that right now when we're given the choice between kind of the socialist perspective or the corporatist cronyist perspective, that again, if you actually sell people the idea of, I have some apples, I'd like to sell them, would you like to buy them? That's it. That Ron Swanson-esque is really, really appealing, no matter the age group. Former governor, I should say, Scott Walker, sorry, old habits die hard, of Wisconsin, again, now president of Young America's Foundation. Appreciate the work that you're doing. Good luck at the big YAF conference at Mount Vernon, and I know it'll be excellent.
Excellent. Folks have questions, YF.org. We'd love to sign students up right now.
You already know we've got that on the Chiron. We'll be back in a moment. Don't go anywhere, folks. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on The Daily Signal. I lied. We're back now. All right, let's talk very, very briefly here. I do want to get a quick second and say, again, some of the things that are on stake in this election goes concurrent to a lot of the legal battles that have to take place. One of our sponsors here on the show who we're thrilled about, and we're very excited to work with them, is the Alliance Defending Freedom. Female athletes still forced to compete against biological males, sometimes without their consent or their knowledge. In Washington, again, we've talked about high school sophomore Callie Keeler sexually assaulted on the wrestling mat during a tournament, and she didn't even learn her opponent was a boy who identifies as a girl until after the match. With the help of the Alliance Defending Freedom, Callie is able to bravely sue the state over a policy that not only allows males to compete in girls' high school sports, but doesn't require schools to disclose that information to female athletes or their parents. That lawsuit against Washington, obviously very important. It's one of the places the primaries are happening tonight. Don't let schools put gender ideology over the safety of girls in sports. Your support today can help fight for Callie and other athletes like her. For a limited time, your first gift to the Alliance Defending Freedom, the ADF, will be doubled by a special matching grant while funds last. Head over to joinadf.com/Tony or text Tony, Tony, to 83848 to have your gift doubled. Now, right before we finish here on the Tony Kinnett Cast, I did want to talk very, very, very quickly before we pivot you over to another video on the Tony Kinnett Cast channel. The Francesca Wong situation is really, really bizarre. And there are so many insane clips of the last 10 years she spent on social media. Like, for example, complaining that she has a half-white child and like apologizing for marrying a white guy. We're going to be releasing that tomorrow. You know what? We're going to do a little something new here because all of these receipts through this election cycle are never in the right place. Maybe one day you'll have these clips on this show, or you'll have to go find clips on social media and bookmark things. So tomorrow we're providing for you the Francesca Hong Supercut. I know. I know it's exciting. Please hold your applause. So tomorrow on Tony Kinnett Cast, again, our YouTube channel over on that side of things, we're going to bring you a full-on supercut of all of the nonsense, all of the receipts ready to go, the reaction there for you, so that you can have it for the future election, because that Wisconsin election will be next week. Now, on some of the election results so far tonight, Decision Desk so far projects that no wins the Missouri Amendment 4, requiring the congressional district approval for constitutional amendments, banning foreign contributions, and penalizing petition fraud. That was going to be kind of a no, because it was a cobbled together kind of a Democrat-leaning policy and proposal. On the other side of things, Michigan is crawling so far. Seriously, Michigan is absolutely crawling on some of its election results so far, which is not surprising. So far, one thing that I was kind of keeping an eye out for are the turnout in Kansas for whether or not there should be different kind of elections for Supreme Court justices. I expected to see a lot of no's, and that is crushing. In Michigan, let me pull this up here because I want to make sure I have all of the updates right here. Only 1.4% of the expected votes are in. They expected that about 1.4 million people, according to NBC's Decision Desk, they have some pretty decent estimates on how many total people they think are going to be turning out for those ballots there. Abdul El-Sayed is currently leading Haley Stevens, 11,600 to 8,000, so 55.8 to 38.7. And those are just going to crawl in. Those are going to crawl in. So instead, we're going to go ahead and close things off here on the Tony Kinnett Cast. Again, more stuff to happen tomorrow. Make sure you follow Tony Kinnett Cast. And you know what? We're going to kick you over there right now for kind of analysis on what all of this means. A little bit of a debate as well. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Y'all, take care.